Hello, folks. I am back with some firearms information, and I'm doing this video because someone had messaged me regarding his newly acquired firearm, which is the 6 hour P226 Legion single action only. And what arose from there was he thought that this had a decocker on this firearm, which it does not. So I want to explain that because there are a lot of people out there buying firearms right now, and a lot of times, unfortunately, during this madness that's going on right now, people are not getting the proper information for their firearms that they're planning to purchase. I understand that gun shops were very swamped, and sometimes the salesperson doesn't get enough time to explain a lot of the different functions of the firearms. Now, the reason why I took this with some urgency is I want to make sure that other new people that are out there understand what single action is. All right, traditional single action is basically what is common, I would say, would be with the 1911 firearm. All these pistols are safety checked. The magazines are in there for aesthetics, but so they've been safety checked. All right, so you with the 1911 firearm, it is single action only, which means that when you cock the hammer back, and usually when you cock the hammer, you're doing it this way. You're racking the slide. Now that's how you're supposed to cock the hammer, not like I just did a few minutes ago. I did that so the slide would be easier to move back. But normal, I'm going to just let the hammer down. Uh, what you normally do is you take the slide, you rack it, and it's going to be in a cocked situation. Right there is what they mean lock is when you put the safety on, which means that when you pull the trigger, it will not fire forward. The hammer will not fall forward, making a discharge with that. So when you're using a firearm that's single action only, you got to follow your safety rules. Your safety rules, one of your number one rules is keep your finger out the trigger as you're racking that slide, and that is very important to do. So, and what happens is it will not fire at this point. So when you put your safety down, it will fire. On the 1911 does have a backstrap safety. Now let's disregard this one for right now and get to the question at hand. The question at hand was regarding the 6 hour P226 Legion single action only. Now, it works similar to a 1911, meaning that you do have to rack your slide. See where that finger is? It's not on there. And you rack it and you let it pop forward. That's if there was a live round in there. So you let it pop forward. And your firearm at that point is cocked. And it does have a safety here that you can put up, and it will lock. So it will not fire at all. Now, this one does not have a beaver tail safety, so you won't have to worry about that as an additional safety. What you do have to pay attention to is not when you have this firearm and you're racking this slide, make sure it's pointed in the safe direction and follow your safety rules. But once you pull that safety down, it's ready to be fired, as you see right here. And it will, like I said, and there is no other way to fire this particular firearm, and neither with the 1911 with the hammer that's down. It will not fire until the excuse me, until the hammer is cocked back. Now, I think what he was expecting, what he wanted to really buy, was maybe a 226 with a decocker on it, or a 229. This is the 229 variant of the Legion. So with this one, all you do is you rack the slide and you let it come forward. It is cocked and ready to go. But however, this right here is a decocker. You use this decocker and you pull down, and the hammer drops safely forward. And there's an internal piece in here which stops the hammer. It's basically like a hammer bar in here that basically stops the hammer from touching uh, the firing pin. So when the hammer goes to fire, when the slide is cycling, at any given time when you're firing with this and you feel like you want to stop shooting, all you would have to do is put the decocker down. Now, one of the other things that you need to know about, there is no safety on this firearm, but it is a safe firearm. You just have to apply those safety rules. And the other thing is with the trigger. The trigger, this firearm can still be fired because, like I said, this is they have internal safeties, but it does not have what you would call, let's say, a trigger disconnect like on. Let me correct that. It doesn't have like a safety that you can actuate and then you pull the trigger from double action mode and it won't work. But when you put the safety down on some of the other firearms, which I'll show you in a moment. So when you pull the trigger on this trigger is going to fire. Because all decocking firearms, remember, this decocker is not a safety at all. It just brings the hammer down safely. Like I said before, it brings the hammer down safely. So when you load this up and you rack that slide and you want to carry it, you decock it down safely, put it in your holster, and carry it like you want to. With this model, once you rack the slide, it's ready to fire, but you have to put the safety on and you have to carry this firearm in what they call cocked and locked. I would suggest that if you're not familiar with this type of firearm, you need a lot of practice to deal with this mode of carry, to be confident with that. And like I said, there is no so what I have to do is depress this trigger to bring it down. What you would have to do is remember, this is not a decocker. If you want to bring that hammer down, I suggest you take the magazine out first. And what's unique about this particular firearm is you can leave this in safety and rack the slide back to clear out that last round. I'll give a quick demonstration of that. Okay, let's say, for example, and this is only for the 6 hour single action only Legion pistols. This does not apply to other firearms. You would have to refer to your manual with those other manufacturers, and I suggest you also look at the 6 hour manual as well. These are snap caps. So I'm going to put this down. Let's say this is the way it is from the very start. You put your magazine in and you rack your slide. The firearm is hot. You want to put that safety on. Let's say you want to unload that firearm. You want to take the magazine out and you want to rack the slide. That's the unique thing about the single action onlys from SIG on their Legion series. So you can rack it, and I don't know if you heard that or not, but the snap cap fell out through the bottom right here. I suggest once you rack that, to be sure that there's nothing in there, is to keep that slide locked back. And that way you can see visually inspected that it is not loaded. Another unique feature about this firearm is I'm going to start over. What you have the safety on, put the magazine in, leave the safety on, rack the slide, and it's already loaded. You don't have to do anything else, and it's ready to go. It's ready to fire. So remember, again, if you want to take this the round out, because there is a round in the chamber here. You pull that out and you rack the slide. I'm going to let you see how it is on using this method of racking. And you saw how that popped forward. Again, there is no decocking on this particular firearm. Now let's talk about the Legion that's in double action. This is double action, single action. You put your magazine in. Now in this particular case, you're going to rack the slide and it's going to pop forward. This is a hot firearm. You will not be able to cock and lock this. Remember, this does not have a safety, but it does have a decocker. All you have to do is pull the decocker down. It's in a safe mode at that point, and you can carry it like this. At this point, when you take your first shot, you pull the trigger, and what will happen is the slide's going to come back, and it's going to shoot out that other round, and it's going to be in single action. Be aware that that hammer is back. So the next thing you want to do is, if you're done shooting, let's say you're at a range, bring that decocker down to clear it, take that magazine out, and eject that round. But to be safe, what you want to do is lock that slide back. It's going to and visually check to see that there's nothing in there. Now, like I said, the reason why I'm making this video is because I think some people might be confused about that, and I want people to be safe with knowing that particular function. I'm just trying to help, and I think that's what everybody in the firearms community would like other people to help with as well. Okay, let me bring in another firearm. This is a CZ75 SP01. Now, there are two versions of this particular firearm. There is a safety-only version. That's what I have right here. And then there is another version, which is called the tactical version, where there's a decocker. So most decockers work similar, but they might have them in different places. You might be like this one that has a decocker here. Some decockers are here. But the reason why I'm showing you this one, because this is a safety version. Again, with snap caps, you're going to rack the slide, and you have a hot firearm. What you do is you put the safety on. It works similar to a 1911 or particularly this firearm, where it's cocked and locked. But there's a little something different with this one. Let me show you the unloading procedure for this as well. First of all, you want to take the magazine out, safety down, and get that round out of there. Now, you also want to visually inspect it to make sure there's nothing in there. But this works a little bit different. Now, what happens here is when you put a round in, and this is a practice that only if you are experienced with, you should only try that. If you're not experienced with it, I don't recommend you getting the safety version, or you need to have some practice time with it. So I'm going to rack this slide, and what is going to be a no-no, if you're at a range and you can do this at a safe environment, you hold the back of the hammer here and you pull the trigger and let this move slightly to the half cock position. I am going to recommend you not to do this, because this is basically an unsafe practice to do. Because if my fingers were to slip and let that go forward, it might cause an accidental discharge. So this is not a practice that I would not recommend. I would recommend you again to consult your manual and from your firearm. Now, what happens is where some people may put this down in this position, what will happen is, remember, you can still pull the trigger and double action like that, just like we did with this one. But the difference is there is no way to pretty much decock it. You're going to have to do like you did with this one. Even though this will fire and double action, you would, and this doesn't work like this one does because its mechanisms are made differently. This one you can rack with the safety on, but this will not. With CZ makes theirs a different, and other manufacturers make theirs different. Please consult your manual. You want to take out the magazine and take the safety off, then rack it out to make sure that there's to visually inspect it. And make sure everything is safe. Now, the reason, like I said, I went through this because someone had contacted me regarding that he figured that on this particular model that it had a decocker. Like I said before, you need to read your manual, study it very well, and understand the difference between single action and double action. And you can look up a lot of videos on YouTube, the differences between single action and double action. You can also go to the manufacturer's website to see how certain firearms work. But it is very important that we as a firearms community need to help one another and help other new parties that are purchasing firearms to understand how to use these firearms safely. And hopefully that the firearm stores will be able to also give a little more instruction. I know that this pandemic thing has pretty much gotten people in a rush and they get overwhelmed, but try to get that salesperson to explain it fully before you purchase a firearm that you may not want or cannot be handled properly. With that said, happy shooting. Please stay safe. And also hashtag 2A.